Hey guys, welcome to today's Java tutorial. Today we're going to be doing the first exercise from the exam papers, which is print number of lines. So let's see what it says. So write a Java program called PrintNumberInLetters that prompts the user to enter a whole number between 1 and 10 inclusive. Print out the number in Word format. If the user enters a number less than 1 or greater than 10, inform the user that the number is invalid. For example, if a user entered 2, the output displayed to the screen is 2. Okay, so this is pretty easy. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to say, well, we need the user input. And then once we have that, we're going to need to ask them to, well, we've asked them for a number. So then we're going to need to check and see if it's within between 1 and 10. If it's between 1 and 10. Okay. And if it is, then we need to say, okay, well, convert to a string. Okay, so there are the three things we need to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to import our scanner. Import java.util.scanner. Okay, let's get our user input, scanner, my input equals new scanner system.in. Okay, then we're going to say we need to ask them to enter a number, system.out.println enter an integer between 1 to 10. Okay, so now our last line for this is we're just going to declare a new variable on this line. We're going to call it number to convert, and that's going to equal whatever they enter. My input, just declared up here, the object up there, dot next int, because that's what we want. We want an integer. Okay. Okay, so there are a few different ways that we can check and see, or that we can see what number they entered and then change it to output a string. So we could use an if statement, but that would be very long. So we'd have to write out 10 if statements. So if they enter 1, print 1. So we'd have to do that 10 times, which is a bit long. Another way we could do it is we could use a switch. To ch, and then we'd have to say, well, if it's 1, then print 1, which is pretty much the same as an if statement. But the last thing we could do is we could use an array, which is what I'm going to show you today, since an if is already covered in the solutions on Moodle. So I'm going to use an array for mine. So let's just delete this. So we have what the user enters. The next thing we need to do, which is very important, we have to check and see if it's between, it is a number between 1 and 10. So if it's greater than 10, we have to say no, it's invalid, the number is invalid, or if it's less than 1. So how are we going to do that? We're just going to have a simple little if statement. We're going to say, well, if num to convert, if num to convert is less than 1, or num to convert is greater than 10. I'll just put in my other brackets. It's good to always put each side in brackets. You probably get away with not putting them in, but it's good practice to always put them in. Okay, let's put in our curly brackets, and we're going to say, well, system, so yeah, so in here it's checking the condition. If the number that they enter is less than 1, then it's going to come back true, which means we want it to say print line, we want it to say invalid number. Okay, and then we're going to say system dot exit. I'm just going to pass a parameter of 0. So what this method does is it says, okay, well, if they enter a number that's less than 1 or greater than 10, then we're going to print out to the screen invalid number, and the program's just going to end. Simple as that. So what we haven't done yet is we haven't even converted our string yet. So how are we going to do this? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to create our array. And our array is going to be an array of strings because they're all contain characters. There's no numbers in them. So I'm just going to say string array number, and I'm just going to call it numbers, equals, and then I'm going to use my curly brackets, double quotes because they're strings, and I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to do 3 for the moment because I'm not bothered typing them all out. Okay. I better type them all out, hadn't I? I'll pause the video and then I'll just type them all out so you don't have to sit here and watch it. Okay, so I've finished typing them all out. So what I've done here is I've declared a new array called numbers, and the numbers is the array numbers is comprised of strings. So here are all our different strings. So we've 10 strings in the array numbers. So the one at index 0 is 1, and the one at index 1 is 2. So what do we want to do now? Well, we're going to be a little bit smart here, and we're going to say, well, let's just say declare a new integer called I. Okay, and we're going to say, well, I is equal to whatever they entered. So whatever the user enters minus 1. And why are we saying minus 1? Well, if the user enters number 1 and we want it to print out 1, we're going to say, well, 1, the element 1 in our array has an index of 0. So what we want to do is we want to say, well, they enter 1 hoping to get 1 back in return. So we're going to take 1 away from 1, which will give us our index. So if they enter in 7, it would realistically it would print out 8. So we take away 1 and it will print out 7. So if I just do a quick system.out.println and say you entered the number, and then I'm just going to concatenate on our array name, brackets, and the index. So in here you put the index. I could simply type 0 or I could type 5, but what we want is whatever they enter, so I've already assigned that to I, so we're going to put I in here, semicolon, save, let's see if it runs, hopefully it will. Ugh. Cannot find symbol for it's because we called it numbers, that's why. Okay, so let's run it again. Oh, run it again. Terminate. Let's run, compile and run. Okay, I'll just enlarge this. So enter an integer between 1 and 10, so I'm just going to say 5, and you have entered 5, perfect. So what's the difference between this and using an if statement? Well, here, this is everything that you would have had to use in the if statement program anyway, but this one, this 3 little lines, is all we used for an array, whereas in an if statement we would have had 10 lines of code going if this condition is true, print this out, if this condition is true, print this out. So this is a lot faster in terms of how efficient the program is. So if we were to use a switch, again, it would be the same as an if statement. It would be over 10 lines long, and it's really not necessary. So an array is probably the best method to use here. So I'm just quickly going to run through it all again. So we import our scanner, we get the user input up here, we assign it to the variable number to convert, then we check and see if it's between 1 and 10. If it's not between 1 and 10, we end the program. Let's just check that in our, make sure that works. Okay, so I'm going to enter in 100, invalid number, perfect. So we check and see if it's less, if what they enter is less than 1, which would be 0 or a negative number, or if it's greater than 10, so any number more greater than 10, print out invalid number and then exit the system, or exit the program. So then we also declared our array called numbers, which is comprised of string variables, or string elements, so and then we have all our different strings in there, and then we declared our variable I, and we said, okay, well, we want to find the index of from the number that the user enters. So if they enter 1, we want to take away 1, because then that will give us our index. And then we simply print it out to the screen, and we say numbers with our index, which is contained in the variable I. Alright guys, hope this video was helpful. I'll put a link in the description to the next video, and best of luck.